Hello and welcome. You're watching the Explosive Exclusive. I'm Padmaja Joshi. Take a long, hard look at these faces on your screen. The man you see on your screen is one of the two doctors in Jammu and Kashmir who have been dismissed by the administration for falsifying the post-mortem report of two women who died in Shopian in 2009. You must be wondering, what's the big deal about some administrative action about a case that is more than a decade old? The big deal is that this one act of two government doctors in Kashmir, Dr. Nigat Shaheen Chillu and Dr. Bilal Ahmad Dalal, backed and amplified by a nefarious network of Pakistan's proxies, political parties and so-called human rights activists, led to countless shutdown calls, stone pelting and chaos in Kashmir. 7 civilians lost their lives. 103 people were injured. And what's worse is that the Indian army was besmirched globally as a rapist force. These doctors didn't just lie. They lit a fire that then engulfed all of Jammu and Kashmir for more than a decade. But first, let's tell you what the details of this case are. Nigat Shaheen Chillu is a consultant gynecologist and Bilal Dalal is a medical officer. They created a fake post-mortem report for two women, Asiya and Neelofar, both of whom died of drowning in Shopian in 2009. A CBI probe and findings of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences and the Central Forensic Science Laboratory both established that these two women actually died of asphyxia, that they drowned in a stream, and that there was no evidence ever either of rape or attempt to rape in either case. The Jammu and Kashmir administration now says that the two doctors didn't just fake the post-mortem report. They actively worked with Pakistan and hatched this conspiracy with Pakistan's assets in Kashmir. And their aim was to create disaffection against the Indian state by falsely accusing the Indian army, by trying to ensure that the Indian army stands accused of the rape and murder of these two Kashmiri women. And that's exactly what happened. For 7 months, Jammu Kashmir was subjected to hartal. Practically every week, a hartal call was given by the separatists. People like Yasin Malik, Mehbooba Mufti used this excuse of rape by the Indian army to even try and push for removal of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. And worst of all, this fig leaf, this excuse, this lie was repeated ad nauseum for the last 10 years. From Kashmir to Switzerland to Geneva, everywhere the Indian army was painted as an occupationist rapist force, and India was painted as a country that rapes and murders its own people. But worst of all, because of this plot, because of this conspiracy, it was the Kashmiris who suffered. They died and bled in stone pelting. Little children missed their school because of continuous curfew. Now, with this nexus finally being called out, who will answer to the Kashmiris that these traitors robbed their future of? Let me take this straight across. In fact, Sushil Pandit, activist, joining us along with Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former DG Infantry, Majid Haidari, political analyst, and Ahmad Ayaz, lawyer. You know, there have been some pretty heinous things that have been done in Kashmir, Ahmad Ayaz. But to try and use the drowning of two women in order to plunge Kashmir into chaos, I think ranks perhaps the lowest that separatist politicians in Kashmir have gone. This is definitely the lowest, I would reckon.
You see, Padmaja, here is a system where the medical professionals who are supposed to conduct the post-mortem confirm it as a rape, and on the other side, the investigation agencies, after a period of 14 years now, they announced that no, it was not a rape.
No, they did not, sir. You are misleading. You are misleading even now, and that's the tragedy. You know it better than I because you stay in Kashmir. That the first report that came out said very clearly that both of these women had drowned. that there was no evidence of rape or attempt to rape on them. But because there was a shutdown call given, because this so-called all parties Hurriyat conference got involved, that the initial finding was disregarded. The police which said that this was a case of drowning, they were transferred. They were acted against because you wanted Kashmir to burn. And you used these two poor women as an excuse.
No, let me complete. You see, so far as drowning cases are concerned, it's not the only one case of drowning in Kashmir. There are a lot many drowning cases. But why have the doubts been raised on this particular case that time? Not only in the locality, but the entire Kashmir was under protest for so many months rather. And even I understand, if I'm rightly, I'm not sure, but as I remember, possibly police also that time said that it was not a drowning. And the drowning
No, the police in fact said it is a drowning. The first report that was given to the then Chief Minister Omar Abdullah, and he said it in a press conference, sir. He said it in a press conference that this is a case of drowning. The media should not call it a rape. They should call it alleged rape.
Okay, subject to the confirmation. But now here, when we are raising the doubts against the two, it's not the two individual doctors, it is the system. It is a system and an organization.
No, it is not the system.
Institution.
No, there was no system. These were two poor women. These were two poor women who were used.
There was a government, properly elected government. There is an institution against institution. We are raising these doubts now. It's not against two individuals. It is the hospital which must have given the certificate. We must have conducted the post-mortem, not at their private clinics.
Sir, you either have to be incredibly naive or you think all of us are stupid if you still think that we are going to believe this. We just told you that this was planned. This was planned in a fashion that a post-mortem report was faked. The initial findings were deliberately changed, Sushil Pandit. It's not as if, oh, the doctor got the diagnosis wrong, or it is just professional incompetence. This was planned to the last T. That Mr. Gilani would jump in, Mehbooba Mufti would jump in. Suddenly it became not just about Asiya Jan. It was about India.
Absolutely, Padmaja. And it is the same kind of logic that, it is the bullet or the gun who killed, not the person who pulled the trigger. This kind of logic one is tired of hearing as apologists churn out time and again. Rape has been the most favorite allegation against security forces by Jihad in order to discredit them, delegitimize their presence, and demoralize them. And under public pressure, governments after governments, and sometimes politicians very willingly, jail people, cashier them, court-martial them, punish them. Kunan Poshpura case is a similar case where DM's handiwork was completely exposed by none other than the Editors Guild chairman B.G. Varghese in his report. Our problem is it takes 14 years to just dismiss. What about prosecution? What about jail terms? What about punishment? None of this has happened. And if a system takes such a long time to identify moles, it's not just doctors. You have lawyers who are complicit in this. You have then police and politicians and bureaucracy who are complicit in this. And what have we got after 14 years? Dismissal from the service of just these two doctors. The husband of one of the women killed was complicit in fabricating this entire evidence, and this is part of the CBI report. CBI has listed at least half a dozen people who are directly complicit in this fabrication. It took a high court judge several months to bail them out. Bail those security forces Jawan out who were rotting in the jail and being humiliated for a crime that they did not commit. But such is the system in Kashmir, seeped deep into by Jihad, that people handling it from Delhi are either completely ignorant of it, and those who handling in Kashmir are complicit in it.
And what is worse,
get rogered.
What is worse, that the very people on whose behalf the so-called activist General Kulkarni claimed to speak, they are the ones who are made a pawn. These two women were nothing more than convenient pawns. I'm sorry to say it sounds harsh, but that is exactly what they were. They were a great opportunity. They were monetized. They were turned into a sort of mascot. What happened? Days later, we had the Christian Science Monitor. We had an American publication, General Kulkarni, making the leap from one crime to saying, for very long, the Indian army has been accused of human rights violations, leading young men to take to the streets with cries of Azadi, freedom, making one wonder whether it's time to finally grant Kashmir the autonomy that it craves. The army is the rapist because of this one case that was fabricated with such detail, and India is an occupation force.
Unfortunate, Padmaja, that this is a time when it is so much better for the people of Kashmir to say sorry, because it would be much better, because it has taken them 14 years. And if I can tell whoever that may be so, that I was a victim myself. And fortunately, the woman who she had, she was in coma for a long time. And when she got back into her senses, she said she wasn't raped. And therefore, the incident happened in Doda with me when I was the commanding officer. So these kind of things in the valley have been happening of late. And they sometimes, because the two women were dead, they try and take compensation, they try and get a job for somebody, and look who represents Shopian. Everything is all known. So it is very, very unfortunate that such a thing has to happen. And it has taken, I agree, 14 years. And that's too long a period.
But sir, why should it stop at an apology? 7 people, 7 Kashmiris lost their lives. 7 Indians lost their lives. Over 100 were injured. There should be penal action. Everyone who conspired, they shouldn't be allowed to get away with a sorry and dismissal. They should be arrested.
I agree with you, Padmaja, but 6,000 crores lost, 7 months, no action taken, tremendous amount of chaos in the valley. But that is where it is. And it is so sad and so bad that, and still we have people wanting to support such an action by saying ifs and buts. There are no ifs and buts in this particular scene. It should be outright that something had gone wrong. These 2 doctors were fabricating. They did fabricate in direction from Pakistan, ISI, and there were their assets operating in the valley who did it, and a whole lot of these people were there, and therefore, and then I still do remember that the then Chief Minister Omar Abdullah had said his first report was very clear that these girls had drowned. But subsequently, that one justice, I think again Han, if I'm not Musharraf Khan or some justice, a one-man report, it says some foul thing has taken place. Again, the whole investigation takes place. And what is it? 14 years. Extremely, extremely sad. At least now the people from the valley must just at least be able to apologize and say, we are involved in it and we are sorry for it, rather than wanting to get jobs for somebody from the family, wanting to criticize and condemn the security forces, and wanting to have a narrative, which is very, very unfortunate. It is their loss, and it is their loss of faith more than anything else. I think it's time that the people in the valley understood that it is not to be done with. It's playing with fire. Absolutely playing with fire, which is not done.
Everyone who conspired and everyone who was complicit, Majid Haidari, including many of your friends who have tried to take it to the Human Rights Tribunal, who has said, oh, Unmo Gibb should come get involved in this. Every single person who wrote an op-ed saying, look, Shopian is burning, Srinagar is on the streets, Azadi cries are happening. They should be picketing outside any person who was complicit in this and ask them, why did you do this to us?
Padmaja Saiba, being a very prominent woman journalist, I hope you'll agree that this case, Asiya and Neelofar, can't go like no one killed Jessica Lal. It's not that case. Here we are talking about 2 doctors, and they were not working in isolation. They were part of the system where the then Chief Minister Omar Abdullah...
There is no comparison, sir. We know who killed Neelofar and Asiya. They were crossing a stream and they died.
See, that is what I'm trying to explain before you,
Flashbacks.
that it was Umar Abdullah who appointed a commission, Muzaffar Jan Commission, which said there was rape and murder. First point. The second point was that the then High Court Bar Association President Mia Qayyum said that yes, through his parallel report, it was a rape and murder. And then what was the role of BJP? The BJP government appointed a close relative of same advocate Mia Qayyum to a very powerful post. So what I want to tell the nation is that there is some kind of nexus between the BJP and other parts of the system who are being isolated, and these two doctors are being victimized through extrajudicial dismissal of services. I mean, the case.
Sir, clearly, since you are a very prolific sleuth and you have skills which far outweigh those of the CBI, I have nothing to counter. Would you care to tell us how you have determined this great conspiracy?
I find it because BJP government gave a very strong and powerful position to a very close relative of advocate Mia Qayyum, who in his report had said that time that it
Omar Abdullah, you would not argue that Omar Abdullah is in any way being propped up by the BJP. Omar Abdullah was the first person who said this is not a rape.
BJP is somewhere part of this nexus because it's the BJP government which has singled out two doctors and dismissed them from their services when you even need to sack some police officers who were in chair at that time.
Mr. Pandit.
What action has been taken against the SHO, the SP concerned, nothing doing? You are victimizing two doctors? Is it part of some conspiracy to snatch?
Well, of course, this is a parallel world where the conspirators are now the victims.
Padmaja, the lady doctor who committed the autopsy used her own vaginal swabs to prove that this was a rape. And she was acting under the instructions of the medical officer, Dr. Dalal. Two of them were directly involved, directly complicit. And both of them.
The FIR of murder. What action against police officers? What action against the then Chief Secretary S.S. Kapoor? It's a full-fledged nexus. Even Umar Abdullah needs to be questioned.
Even I am saying that there are others as well. Instead of saying that two innocent doctors have been dismissed, you should say others should also be punished. What you are saying is that two doctors are being victimized. How stupid can that be?
And Chief Secretary from both.
How stupid can that be?
BJP belongs to
you are batting for the guilty. Guilty who use their hands and minds to fabricate evidence. Those who actually destroyed evidence and fabricated a counter evidence, they should be given scot-free status.
BJP is straightforward involved.
You know
they
what?
Blessed Mia Qayyum's close relative with a very powerful chair. I can speak on the stage.
Incredible.
What kind of chair he was given? BJP
Well, you got a debate.
Unbelievable. You know, General Kulkarni.
Tomorrow he talked about. He talked about Ronald Reagan and Johnson and you know all kinds of people. He is not talking about those who are accused and punished.
Absolutely.
He's batting for them and actually accusing everybody else.
Because Mr. Hajri has already made up his mind. He's already made up his mind about where he stands vis-a-vis any allegations, whether true or false. But General Kulkarni, what this really does is it puts in sharp focus the conflict industry that works ruthlessly in Kashmir, how well networked it is and how far they will go in order to ensure that the wheels keep turning and the money keeps coming.
There is no denying the fact, Padmaja. I'm shocked that after 14 years, if there were anyone to come and still defend that there's a conspiracy in this case, is absolutely shocking. I'm telling them I'm a victim as a commanding officer, and I can tell you who that girl is also over there in Doda, whose wife was she. And then when she was in coma because she jumped in the river herself, and after having jumped, we recovered her, we put it, and she was evacuated by a helicopter, our own helicopter, to the Kashmir Medical College over there. And thereafter, when she came back to her senses, she said nothing. She wanting to commit suicide. She said that herself. And then everybody, but then, you know, the kind of stories, the narratives that have gone along. And now if you were to tell people, no, there's a conspiracy, there's a BJP government. It doesn't matter which government, no government will do it. They are women. And those two poor women are dead. And that is where the conspiracy from the Pakistani side and the assets operating over here. And unfortunately, even after 14 years, we have people defending. That is what is shocking, Padmaja.
And what is truly tragic is people were so busy with the politics around Neelofar and Asiya. We wonder if someone actually paused at some time to give a thought to these two young women, just 22 and 17, when they passed away, when they drowned in a stream, because all they were reduced to were pawns in this bigger political game. May their soul rest in peace. Thanks very much, all gentlemen, for joining me. Taking a very quick break. On the other side, the big story on the opposition meet from Patna.